Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
I'm Phil Proctor. I'm not really a boomer, but I play one on the radio. And we have a very interesting guest today, Rob Lewine, Phyllis Katz's husband. Phyllis was on the show just recently, and Rob is a very, very interesting, multi-talented fellow. And I happen to have a special connection with him because we went to Alan Stevenson School in New York together, kind of together. And did we go to Riverdale also? Did you go to Riverdale?
We went to Riverdale separately.
Separately?
Yeah.
Okay.
On account of you. I think you were gone before I arrived.
Yes, I was gone, man. So we're going to talk about music, and we're going to talk about photography, and we're going to talk about comedy. And
it's an interesting trend. These are really radio-friendly guests. Last week was a magician.
Yeah.
Today we have a photographer.
Right.
Next week I think we have a mime.
So we're covering all our bases. Well, we have to. We need to be distracted.
Next week we're going to have an early Thanksgiving dinner show.
Oh, good.
You and I are going to have Thanksgiving. And I've invited a very good friend of mine who is Native American. He is a Lakota.
Is he going to
headman?
Is he going to be on the show with what, smoke signals or how?
Well, I thought what more appropriate thing for us to have a Thanksgiving dinner with an Indian.
Listen, does he have a reservation?
Ha ha!
Thank you.
You're here all week. Well, at least all hour.
Try the turkey leg.
But David Swallow Jr., who's fairly well known, and he's a dear old friend, and he's going to join us to talk turkey about what's going on these days. But today we have Rob Lewine. Rob, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
You have such an interesting background. You are a professional photographer with quite a history behind you. Yeah. And a musician as well. I mean, you were one of the original members of Little Feat.
I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have to audition with
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Was it shoe size? I mean, how did you get into the groove?
That's a good question. I think, Richie Hayward, the drummer, whom I knew previously, brought me into the band, which was just forming, really, at that time. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I'd asked Richie to join a band that I was already in, a band which had a contract with Columbia, as the Firesign Theater did.
Yeah.
And was moving through a personnel change, and it didn't work out. Not that Richie wasn't one of the greatest drummers ever. He was. But he returned the favor a year or so later by asking me to come into this band, which was Little Feat.
And you play the bass.
I'm a bass player.
Right.
Yeah.
So you left Little Feat to go to this band that had a contract.
That's true. That's another band. Yeah, the first band that I've mentioned is the Illinois Speed Press. We were on Columbia Records. And
the Firesign Theater wrote liner notes for you.
Indeed.
Another bizarre connection.
And still, Phil and I did actually not know one another.
Wow.
Not yet.
And we've been to school together.
Yeah.
But,
the whole trajectory.
5-year gap.
Yeah, the whole trajectory. I was thinking about it. When I first laid eyes on Phil Proctor, that I remember, I was 8 and Phil was perhaps 12. We were at the same private school in Manhattan, and I watched him perform with 2 other kids on stage, and you were doing
Gaudiama Signature.
You were doing something in Greek togas that involved song.
Roman togas.
Okay. And I looked at him and I said, that's a really interesting older guy.
12-year-old.
Yes. Yeah. But actually, we didn't become friends until decades later.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So you're weird.
And it was through Phyllis, actually, because you and Phyllis Katz, my wife, knew one another.
Through the Groundlings. And the Firesign Theater, which performed with the Groundlings at that time, the Phil Hartman years, Kip King years, and the Phyllis Katz years, which covers the whole history of the Groundlings, basically, right? And we did some charity performances on that wonderful stage. And
Phyllis was a guest on our show just recently, and you can hear her talk about the Groundlings and that whole fascinating history on her episode, which you can find on our website, sexyboomershow.com.
Right.
So you were a New Yorker.
Correct.
And you got into music. And
your dad was in the business,
My
wasn't
dad was a a television executive. He was the exec in charge of programming at each of the networks, ABC, then NBC, then CBS, and after that, Warner Brothers. He was a big deal.
Mackerel.
One of the founders of the Academy, twice its president. It was him, and then it was Walter Cronkite, and then it was my dad again.
What's your dad's name?
Robert F. Lewine.
Robert F. Lewine.
This is back when news departments at the networks
told the news.
were separated from entertainment.
Separate entity. Yeah.
And were determined to be a loss leader. It was part of the licensing commitment. In return for getting a free ride on public airwaves, you had a news and public affairs commitment. And so the news was off limits to marketeers and influence peddling. It was really a public service, and that's why I think Walter Concrete. Walter Concrete.
Walter Headcold. Walter Headcold is how you translate Cronkite.
Oh, okay.
Walter Headcold.
Oh. Are you following that, Rob?
At a distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you avoid the draft?
I was a draft dodger. I didn't take classes, but I knew that I did not want to go in. I was not only fiercely opposed to the war, but terrified of
now
being
we're talking
part
about
of it.
Vietnam.
Yeah,
Vietnam, right.
Yeah.
And
one war is the same as another.
So I arranged to flunk a whole bunch of physicals. And one of the most memorable moments for me, I was at UCLA Film School at the time. I would prepare for the draft events. What were they called? Inductions?
Yeah,
I forget.
induction centers.
Yeah, right. So, so I would stop eating 3 or 4, 5 days before the event. I would stop sleeping 2 days before the event, and prior to that, I'd stopped shaving maybe 7 or 8 days before. I wanted to make myself semi-psychotic. Right. Well, it wasn't a hard thing to pull off given who I actually am. Right. And so I had myself into this state of mind on this particular occasion. The induction center was on Wilshire Boulevard. I would also make myself late. Yeah. And I wasn't late enough to suit my purposes on that occasion, so I walked around the block. And when I came back, friends of mine from UCLA were shooting a documentary on the steps, and it shattered my alienation.
Oh,
right. So it's like all my prep just went down the toilet, and I went in. Another thing that I did was to not wear underpants. So that or socks, so that when you were ordered to strip down to your underwear and your socks, I couldn't. So I was the only guy wearing jeans and shoes. And I did my best impression of a psychotic version of myself, and somehow succeeded in not getting drafted. Psychological deferments.
Wow. Yeah. Now, did that haunt you in
No.
job applications?
I've never had a job.
Oh, well, that helped.
Yeah.
You had a job.
I've had a ton of jobs as a freelancer, but I was never
as a freelancer
employed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I guess I never. Wait, I take it back. I was a pool boy at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Oh.
But that was long before the war.
Did you wear underwear then, or did you?
Didn't have to.
No, you
bathing
didn't.
suit.
That's right.
Yeah,
Good. Okay.
Because you had to jump into the pool and pull people out who'd had too much to drink.
What did you first make your living at? Music or photography?
Music.
Okay.
But you've made your living since.
My income from music was calculated in the single digits, so it was easy to do better than that. But yes, photography was my first career.
How did you get into photography? I mean, look, how did you get into music? How did you get into photography?
Accidentally in both cases. Never really had a plan. I'm not sure I still have one.
But you had a talent, and you apparently pursued your talent.
Right.
Did your parents encourage you to play the guitar, or what was that about?
I had no direction from my parents whatsoever. My
You're
dad
a single
was,
child.
I'm a single child. My dad was kind of a remote figure. I was very close to my mother.
You had to reach him by using a remote.
I couldn't.
Click, click.
There were no
Hey,
remotes.
Dad, click, click.
Yeah.
What channel are you on?
Dad,
now?
I'm over here.
Yeah, what network are you on?
That's right. So what's the question?
The question was,
how did you get into music?
Yeah.
I was, of course, the Beatles influenced me, as they did, an entire generation of human beings.
Yes.
And when I saw them, I thought, this could be fun. I should probably learn how to play something.
Oh, wow.
And I think formed a band while at Swarthmore. But that was a jug band. No, at UCLA, I formed a band which
I was drinking and playing,
which had me as the singer, which was a mistake. And I'd helped, I'd lent a guy, another student, $50 to buy a bass. Turned out he couldn't play at all.
Wow.
And he couldn't pay back the $50. So I got the bass.
Repoed it.
And there's the origin story.
Wow.
When you were at UCLA, were you studying cinematography?
Yes,
All right, so
as a film
Is that how you became a cinematographer for The Doors?
I would have to say yes, but not because of my cinematography. Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek had been at UCLA Film and had just left.
Oh.
So they were kind of still on the periphery of events there. And I had a friend who was very close to both of them.
So they opened the doors for you.
In effect. and I wound up being part of their film crew in the later stages.
Wow.
What was that like?
It was a job. Made a little bit more interesting by traveling with them a bit and being on stage with them at the Hollywood Bowl, especially. I was on my knees loading an Ariflex magazine when Jim, whom I was around a lot, walked in with Mick Jagger, and it was just the three of us in a room, and I was, kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah. What was Jim Morrison like? I mean, day-to-day?
Sadly, at the point at which I got to be around him a lot, he was drifting already and not really present.
Now, you're talking about the lead singer of The Doors, when you say drifting, what do you mean?
Well, he had
Drugs.
addiction issues, and it was drugs and it was booze, and he was drifting.
And his dad was an admiral, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah, he was a big brass in the Navy, which I always wondered about that dynamic.
Yeah. His son was afloat, I guess.
But now you went on to be a photographer, and your work's been featured in everything from National Geographic World, Newsweek, Rolling Stone, Time, at the LA Times. You've worked for all the major studios and TV studios and networks, I should say. How did you get into that?
Let me think about this.
Yeah, you better.
After I got out of rock and roll, I needed to do something, and I sought work as a cinematographer. And one of the places I went to was the Encyclopedia Britannica West Coast Film Unit, which existed to produce classroom materials. And they said, we've got all the cinematographers we need. Do you know how to make film strips? I said, sure. And I asked myself, what are they?
Yeah. It was like early PowerPoints.
Yeah,
right?
it's a very primitive form of audiovisual product for the classroom. So it involves pictures and it involves text, and you put all these things together. I pitched a project to them on the American desert, which I wanted to hang out in, frankly. That was my motivation. And they took it. So it was a series of 6 little stories about deserts. And I did the research and I did the writing. And then I went out into the deserts for 2 months, sleeping on the ground the entire way, and photographed much of the American West. And that turned out really well. And they asked me to do contract work. So I did that for as long as I could take it. And then at the end of that experience, which was probably 4 to 5 years, I flipped a coin. Either it was a real coin or it was a virtual coin. I cannot remember. One side was writer, and the other was photographer, and it landed photographer.
Really?
And off I went.
Sounds like a short story.
Very short.
Were you in the desert with a horse with no name, or did you concentrate on iguanas? Or?
I did, but I cannot reveal the name of the horse.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Good. But I honor your...
Well, I would imagine photographing and the American West would turn anyone on to photography.
Well, I don't think I did it all that well, to be honest with you, because the requirement was to get the job done and not wait for the magic moment.
You were learning on the job.
So I was, yes. Yeah, I was.
And in those days, you had to be aware of your f-stop and what film you were
Well, I knew that
using.
much. I'd started taking pictures as a kid, including, had we known
Same
one
as
another,
me.
I would be taking pictures of you as a kid. I started with folding bed cameras, which were ancient cameras that my father's father had owned.
Folding bed cameras?
Yeah, with bellows.
Yeah.
You'd open them up and you'd
Like
put
a little accordion.
Yeah, right. And it was 620 film, which no longer exists.
That's right. Yeah.
Medium format. And so those are my first pictures. They were awful, but at least I got started.
Yeah, I when I was in high school, we had a family trip to Europe, and I was in Berlin when the wall was still up, and I had Nicorette, I think it was.
Sure.
And I shot 600 pictures, black and white, Tri-X and Plus X. And then I developed it all myself. And totally burned myself out ever on doing that again. You've done quite well for yourself, and you've done portrait work and all.
You worked with a lot of stars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you did a lot of portrait work for the studios, I would imagine. And
It wasn't portrait work per se. I'd get hired to do publicity sessions and one-sheets.
yes.
What's a one sheet?
Posters.
Advertising, yeah.
Advertising,
The
okay.
poster that you would see when you walk into a theater. If
Oh,
anybody
wow.
walks into a theater anymore, you
Well,
would see.
those
you know.
days, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're still doing portrait work.
Well, yes. Kind of more in an amateur market.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. You did an absolutely wonderful session with my late wife, Melinda.
Well, yes.
And we featured one of your pictures at her memorial service, which so many people complimented me and you on.
Well, thank you.
You know, and you recently worked with Lorraine Newman, for
Sure.
instance, right?
Sure.
So you're
Well,
still doing some pretty good work.
Well, yes, I'd like to think so.
Well, Anthony Hopkins, Kenny Rogers, Phil Hartman.
Oh, we're
guess
looking
what
at
I'm
pictures.
I guess what I'm
Right.
saying is that I tend not to get assigned work by publications or design firms or ad agencies at this point. My market is more or less the general marketplace. Lorraine is a friend.
Yeah. She was a
Melinda,
crowd lady.
obviously, was a dear friend.
Melinda Peterson,
Yeah,
yes.
so people come to me who want to be treated well photographically.
Yeah, that's right.
I looked at a lot of your headshots and stuff, and
We're looking at them on the screen here. They're beautiful.
Your beautiful work, and it's
One after another.
on your website, which is.
Lewine Photo, PHOTO.com.
And I see that when you on the portraits, you really
capture
Well, you really
personality.
use a very strong, almost like soft key light, and to just make that face radiate.
Depends.
Yeah. So somebody walks in. Maybe you have a story about a particular person that you photographed. How do you look at it as a photographer or an artist in terms of bringing out the best features in somebody? How does someone, if they want to take a portrait, how do you get a great portrait?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for that. And I would say it's not really about lighting. Lighting becomes a part of the toolkit, but what you really want to do, at least as the kind of photographer I am, is bring out the essence of that person.
Right.
So in a way, you are directing people, but you're not really giving directions. It's an engagement. So if I want to photograph you and have you show me the best of what you've got to give, a relationship is already underway when we meet. It's an organic process. I don't really have a technique in that sense. It's engagement.
So like it's psychological as much as anything.
Yes.
I mean, because I'm very comfortable behind the camera, not so much in front of one.
Me too.
And I freeze up. I can feel my muscles tightening up. I'm sure that's not uncommon. So the question is, how do you get people to relax and let their, if you will, their
inner
spirit come out?
Well, great
through.
question again, and I would say I don't comment on what's not working. That's counterproductive. So I just try to elicit a performance. A story that I sometimes tell is based on having taken some improv classes at the Groundlings in the beginning, just after Phyllis Katz and I met. And I did it for fun. And I was studying with a woman named Cynthia Seghetti, who was a presence as an improviser and as a teacher. On one occasion, I had to fly to Texas the next day for Us Weekly and photograph a guy who had as an alter ego, he was a film critic in this character who reviewed drive-in movies. It's kind of a funny premise. And he had a character, and he dressed up as this character, and he had a car tricked out like a frontier version of a Cadillac that a guy like that might drive. And we went to this abandoned drive-in somewhere in Texas.
Sounds like Joe Bob Briggs.
It is Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And a lovely guy, but he, for all of his humor, which was literary, he wasn't really giving me the character. And I thought, I'm screwed. This is going to be a failed shoot. And it's dark. I'm in Texas, and I think, wait a second, what have I been studying? Improv. So I started playing with him. he didn't. It wasn't a technique in particular. It was just an engagement. And I said, you have to give me more. I know there's more in there. Look at the way you're dressed. Let's act like that guy. You're that guy. And the picture is actually going to be on the screen somewhere at some point. It turned into a very successful shoot. And that was it was the beginning of my awareness that my input and my engagement mattered and in fact were a key.
One of the things that I'm enjoying in looking at this slideshow of your pictures is that there's a fellow with a dog, and there was another guy on a horse, and animals are featured and little kids.
What I am really is an environmental portraitist. That's how I think of it. I try to,
nice
if it were you, and I'm photographing you, Ted, I'd try to do that here. With the microphone inches from your mouth in the aspect of the studio, and I would light it accordingly. So I don't have a formula for that. That's improv too.
Right. So, and I see the Jeff Goldblum image, and he's walking towards you holding an umbrella on a rainy city street.
Yep.
Was that your idea?
Yes, I think so.
And
it was outside his apartment off of La Brea.
By the way, he's wonderful in Wicked as the Wizard of Oz. I highly recommend the movie.
Oh, Jeff is a treasure.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
He's so himself.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your worst photography gig?
Oh, I feared it would come up. I can't mention his name.
Okay.
He was a real estate mogul in Los Angeles who happened to own a sports team. Don't ask me, okay? And it was the only shoot in my life I ever walked off of.
Wow.
It was that difficult.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just said, I'm not going to put up with this.
Was he just being nasty?
In cap letters. Yes,
Really?
Cap letters nasty.
Being nasty to the photographer who's trying to flatter him.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But there it is. So I walked off. This was in a building in Beverly Hills. His publicist came after me crying. Literally crying and saying, please, 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 you have to stay. And I said, I don't want to. I called the art director of the magazine from the parking garage and said, I'm not doing this one. It's,
Wow.
never been in this position before, but I'm just not going to go back for that. And he said, please. And he said, we guarantee you the cover. If we get someone else and send it back, that person is going to get chewed up too. We need this cover. So I agreed to go photograph him on another day.
Was he any nicer?
Well, he was much, much nicer, but it was fraudulent.
So they must have read him the riot act.
Yeah.
I think his publicist said, look, we're trying to get you
Yeah, we're trying to get you on the cover.
So let's, get it under control. And so he represented himself as, being at the beginning of what would become a great friendship. And my response to that, it was great.
Yeah.
That's great. I can see it.
So you put on a BS filter?
Completely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was a very negative experience.
Yeah. And I got a great cover out of it. I went after him much more aggressively than I had with John Bloom, who was Joe Bob Briggs.
What's some of the tricks in your toolkit to get somebody to relax?
It's experience.
Yeah.
It's experience. When you're photographing somebody, you're dealing with another human being, and it's an engagement, or as Phyllis would say, it's improv. It's an interaction.
Yeah,
so
it's a little like our show.
I don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. It depends on who's there. Some people are a dream.
What's your dream client?
Well, I've photographed a lot of people I just loved. One of them was Henry Miller. And I loved him because I'd read him. And I was a huge fan, and I went. Kenny Turan, who used to be the film critic for the LA Times, he and I are college buddies.
Oh, yeah.
So he had me do some stuff. He arranged for me to do some stuff that he was doing for the Washington Post when he was their critic, and it was Henry Miller. And we went to his home in the Palisades, and my jaw was dropping. Even before I got in there. But Kenny allowed me to actually ask Miller some questions. So that was thrilling for me. In terms of people I liked, whom I photographed. There have been a lot of them. Jack Lemmon, for example, was one. Ted Danson, Julie Andrews. I'm talking about people who are, famous and also gracious beyond belief.
Jack Lemmon was my mentor. I loved his acting style. I loved his approach.
I always saw a lot of similarities of Jack Lemmon in your work.
That, it has been pointed out by critics as well.
So,
and I knew Henry Miller, by the way, too.
Did you?
Yeah, socially.
Really?
Very nice man. I was the same way. I was awestruck.
Could you tell us something? I'd love to hear it.
No, it was at a time in the 70s when Firesign Theater was kind of cultural heroes, and everybody was hanging out together. It was a very bohemian atmosphere. And I'd go to a party somewhere, and there'd be Glenn Miller, and there'd be Henry Miller, and there'd be, Willie Shoemaker. I mean, just the strangest variety of people all hanging out together, and then David Crosby, and that was the atmosphere, and we took it for granted.
Absolutely.
That was the
60s.
The 60s.
And
we
the 70s.
just 60s and 70s. We took it for granted that we all deserved to be together and rub shoulders and have fun together, get stoned together, and that was the circumstances under which I met him. So we had regular conversations, about life and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that was 60 years ago. Were there just that? It was a smaller community back then.
100%.
And it wasn't. What is the word? It wasn't venal. And nobody was trying to sell more records than anybody else because the whole industry was just beginning. And everybody felt kind of a family feeling, but also kind of honored that we knew we were in at the beginning of something great. And we felt privileged to be there, and we were grateful for it.
It was almost an expansion at that point. Went from top 40 to FM, from short to long form playing. Things relaxed. Hollywood, the new Hollywood was being discovered and defined.
And there's a lot of studio work, which is very personal. Right? You know that. Studio work is very personal, and it was liberating because you really were in your own bubble and able to experiment and create. And that was, I think, one of the things that made it so much fun for us all at the time. And we grew creatively because of it. Now, I noticed that most of your pictures are in black and white. Now, do you prefer that, feeling? There's a color one right
there. Or
there.
where do you make that distinction to go black and white or color?
Well, if you're being assigned in the film era, you would be told, and generally it was color. Almost always. I did some work for Andy Warhol's Interview. That was the black and white publication. So
I see. Okay.
Those decisions were made, not by me.
That's right. It was like on newsprint, wasn't it?
Sure.
Okay, so now in this day and age, everybody has a pretty damn good camera in their pocket.
Right.
And we're in the age of selfies.
Right.
Where does that leave what you do?
Yeah.
It makes me harder to be seen because most people can take a pretty decent picture. Selfies, I don't have love for selfies because there's no interaction. So I don't see. I mean, if you're an accomplished performer, you can put on a performance for yourself.
True,
but most people cannot.
It's kind of a cultural thing too. I was up in Davis over the weekend, and small college town, and we were having a really delicious Chinese restaurant, and an authentic Chinese restaurant. And this young Chinese couple came in. I mean, they were probably 21, 22, and they were both beautiful. And they literally set up what looked like an SLR on a mini tripod.
What's an SLR?
A single lens reflex camera, more of a real camera.
Professional camera.
And they set this thing up, and for the entire dinner, they just posed together into the camera. It was the whole thing was then taking pictures of themselves. And at one point, I took my camera out and took a picture of them.
Taking pictures of themselves.
That's the one I want to see.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
And there was just no conversation.
Sure.
They were just taking...
They were performing for social media.
Okay.
Yeah, it must be.
I mean, that's a whole other thing, too. Magazines were social media back then. Now it's... I don't know, are they even still in business? I mean, I don't even understand what the People magazine concept is anymore. It's online.
Well, it was always to get a celebrity into a hot tub.
Really?
I thought that was, really, in my experience, that
with
was...
underwear and socks or without?
Well, better with the socks than the underwear, yes. Yeah. I went to photograph a guy not for People, but for Forbes, I think, or for Fortune, and he developed a contraceptive sponge for women.
Oh.
And when I got there, we greeted one another, and he said, well, I'm seeing a lot of photographers this week. I said, really? Who was here earlier? He said, someone from People. I said, let me ask you a question. Did they ask you to sit in a hot tub with contraceptive sponges floating on their surface? He said, yes. I said, did they ask you to go down to the beach and throw a sponge to your dog? He said, yes.
Oh, my God, really?
So there was a formula.
I love that image.
For people who are aspiring photographers, whether it's just for their own pleasure and using their phones, which are quite capable now, there's the portrait and there's the candid. Is there much of a difference between the two?
Sure.
I find that the new cameras take beautiful shots into the sun.
Global warming.
Yes.
My global comment is
Yes.
you should know the rules in order to break them. So you should know what happens when you shoot into the sun.
Okay.
Well said.
Okay? And if you want to do that, great. If you want to avoid it, avoid it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a learning process. And I learned kind of on my feet. I did not go to photo school. So my general advice is take pictures.
A lot of
Yes,
pictures.
that's
A lot of
right.
pictures.
I mean, there's no cost involved.
Yes,
Remember, it used to
right.
be
Absolutely.
a 20 or 36 image roll.
Right.
You'd be so excited. You get your film back, and I was like, pfft,
Yeah, right.
okay.
there's
Oh,
one
me
picture,
too.
right.
Oh, yes.
for $25.
Sure.
Both of my uncles were professional photographers.
I didn't know.
Back in Indiana. I was, from a very early age, I was encouraged to take a brownie, and look down into it and click pictures. And I still do it. I just, even though I'm losing my eyesight, I still see things I want to take pictures of. In a way, I'm seeing things a little differently, a little more abstractly now.
Now that photography is so accessible because it's on your phone and the automation is really spectacular, you don't even have to concern yourself with f-stops, or for someone who's
Or
just
the stock you're using.
who does this as sort of a hobby, just to take good pictures, but wants to take a better picture. You have some options. All you have to think about is composition at this point, right? And maybe what kind of lens, because again, my iPhone has 3 different optical lenses, and you have portrait modes, which diffuse the background, stuff like that. What are some quick tricks?
Well, you can learn with an iPhone camera. You absolutely can. You just need to pay attention to what you're doing and discriminate between the choices that you made that you don't like and those that you do. But I wanted to mention that one of my favorite photo books of all time, and I have plenty of them, is an aperture monograph called The Snapshot. And they gave a bunch of art photographers, these are people who really know their stuff, toy cameras.
Oh.
So everything in that book is photographed with a toy camera. The work is brilliant. It's brilliant. Some of it is out of focus. Some of it there's blurred motion. Some of it you can't even really tell what you're looking at. But the secret ingredient was the eye.
Yeah, right.
It's just brilliant. So I tend to say the tool doesn't matter. It's the eye. And you can build your eye. You just, some people are born with it. I'm not sure I was. But you work at it, and you keep shooting, and you keep shooting, and you keep shooting, and you say, wait, I wish I'd done that. So the next time you do that, whatever it was.
What were the names of the Instagram cameras that you could use, disposable cameras?
Instamatics.
Instamatics? I knew somebody who took a bunch of pictures with it and then threw it away.
Without even developing it?
Even developing it. You took it too seriously. But I used to use a Minox camera.
Sure.
Little spy camera.
Spy camera.
Because I could carry it on set with me.
Right.
And take candids of,
Right.
actors and cinematographers and stuff like that. And I love the graininess of the image, you know.
One of the great cameras was the Polaroid SX70. That was the beginning of a certain kind of liberation.
Yes.
Because you'd get this beautiful print, which had its own kind of signature elements to it.
Yeah.
And there it was right away.
Yeah.
And you could just keep at it. I did a lot of work with a Polaroid SX7.
My dad brought our family one of the very first Polaroid cameras because he was an entrepreneur and he helped to raise money for different inventions and things. And that was one of the inventions that he brought in. And then I found pornographic pictures of my parents.
Whoa.
A little later. That was a growth experience for me.
Yeah.
Dad!
Ouch.
God. I still have my Nikon F all brass body.
Yeah.
Is there any value to these old cameras?
Sure. Why not?
What do you mean value? I mean,
you mean is it still useful? Is it still a useful tool?
It's like talking about in cinematography, digital red cams versus an Arri 35 millimeter. Resolution wise, it's getting pretty close, isn't it?
We're way beyond where we need to be in terms of capturing a decent image. Mm-hmm. I think it's like a blind corridor that we go down saying, well, the Canon, Mark IV is, how does that compare to the Nikon, whatever the Nikon?
Red versus blue.
It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. We're getting so deep into the weeds with control. I mean, a camera is now a computer to which you attach a lens. The Canons that I use, SLRs, they have like 4,000 different functions. I need 7 or 8.
Woo.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it kind of gets in the way sometimes. They're miraculous machines, no disrespect, but I think the tool doesn't matter so much.
Well, I remember in the early digital days, the resolution was far greater on film, obviously, by magnitudes. It's like 32K, 35 millimeter film as opposed to what is now 4K, 8K. And the difference in that film was chemical. And it was an organic process.
That's right.
Whereas digital, pixelation, and it was a recreation of reality. And you could see it at first with the processing power of computers. Is there really any value to shooting film?
That's a really great question. I'm not sure I have the answer. The fact is you can shoot digitally and kind of make it look like film, but most people don't know the difference. Most people just look at the image.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just look at the subject of the image. So you can show someone like a really elaborate picture and they'll say, oh, it's Jeff Bridges. Well, yes, it is, but everything else is kind of secondary.
Some people buy these expensive televisions and then they put it on Vivid. Right? It's a setting that is hyper-realistic. It offers really no depth perception. It's just super sharp. And I find it disconcerting. It takes me out of the story. Whereas my new iPhone has a cinematic mode. And that sort of adds a sheen to it that feels a little more story-like, a little more professional, more filmic feeling. So, my God, there's just no excuse anymore, is there, for getting whatever effect you want. But now that we're so ensconced in a digital age, what is reality?
Yeah, first-line theater. Yeah, first question we ever asked. But the other thing is that the cinematic experience has changed so radically for people. People watch things on their little tiny screens or on their home screen at home instead of I go to the Writers Guild screenings. It's on a big old screen with an audience of people. We're in a community together, and the vividness of the cinematography, the style of the cinematographer is very, very, very much an evident part of our experience in the film, and that is something which I think has been lost on the new generation. One of the first things that we talked about when I got to know you and Phyllis out here was you were doing a lot of stock photography.
Stock photography was that's the production of images for licensing. And it's usually the area that is the most lucrative is called lifestyle. People interacting, families, couples, business people, doctors and patients, this sort of thing.
For brochures.
Whatever.
And late night television
billboards.
gags,
Could be billboards. Yeah. I've been on billboards. It is something I did not want to get into. I got asked a lot, and I thought, I don't understand the concept of paying to shoot. I understand being paid. I didn't understand paying. Stock photography is self-funded. I got into it in a very big way. I became a production company. I shot probably 600 stock sessions. I had a big studio on La Brea, 4,400 square feet.
Wow.
We built sets. I hired the best actors and models I could get. I had a crew of 5 or 6 people.
Wow.
On one occasion, I rented the Warner Brothers Ranch for a weekend and had 30 models, and we moved from house front to house front. It's very systematic. It's very strategic, and the point is to produce something sellable. And I prospered mightily, and I learned a lot because you don't light a classroom the way you might light, a romantic couple at a table.
Right.
And that was the alternative. That was the replacement for the assignment work that was drying up.
Well, what now, though, with AI? I mean, you can
It's
generate
dead.
images.
Stock photography is
dead.
Yeah.
So what's someone who wants to be a photographer now going to do?
That's a great question.
Because with AI, I mean, you can pretty much create, you can type in some text and an image will create.
All I can say is whatever it is does not have a soul.
Good point. Because what you're doing is capturing...
You've just said something into a computer.
Yeah.
And it spit it out.
Right. So as opposed
And who owns it, by the way?
As opposed to you, where you're sort of transacting emotion.
Yeah. And I'm also
Captured.
photographing real people in real situations, as opposed to let's have a fantasy.
Yeah.
That's what AI is.
AI, any image. Any image.
Having said that, and I'll say this briefly, I've created one AI image, and it was to illustrate something that I was writing about in the blog on my site, LewinePhoto.com. I wanted a picture of a self-involved photographer. It produced a brilliant image. I can't describe it, but I mean, it captured it beautifully. It was just a fraudulent, dressed up fop. It was wonderful.
New tools.
With all the loss of these past industries, the future is probably more interesting than ever.
I hope it's in a good way.
Just different.
Yeah.
Very different. Well, Rob Lewine, thank you so much for coming in and shedding some light on your...
Yeah, and by the way, you told us at lunch that the very first word you ever uttered as a little baby was light.
It's true.
So, wow.
Yeah.
How prophetic is that?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. You're listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
I'm Phil Proctor. Thanks for listening, guys.
And if you want to hear more, you can get all our shows at sexyboomershow.com. We're here every Tuesday on KPFK at 1 o'clock, live for an hour.
And talk about artificial intelligence. That's our show.
See ya!